Welcome to Doing It My Way by Beata Matras, a podcast about project and product management, communication, brand, and IT. All these topics will definitely improve and have a positive impact on your career. So join me today, subscribe, and expect a new episode every week. Thank you. Today we have a special guest with us, Laniecka, a highly capable release trained engineer, previously Scrum Master and product owner, and also certified coach. What I can say, inspiring woman who is proving that you can be whoever you want, and you just need to try, experiment, change, and learn within different roles, companies, and areas. Today, we'll be exploring the topic of change, growth, and women support. So, welcome to the show, Ola.
Hi, Beata. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for this warm invite. Really kind words. I'm really chuffed to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Ola. So, to start our conversation, can you share with us a journey to becoming Scrum Master, product owner, and currently release train engineer? And why did you choose release train engineering?
Wow, that's quite a story. So I'll try to be brief. So it all started because my background is in chemical engineering, and I worked 20 as a project engineer, and it was not particularly my cup of tea. So I decided to change my career, and I spent a year upskilling, volunteering. I was working for this app called Now You. So yeah, spent a whole year engaged in a lot of different projects, and I was thinking about going to project management. But so it happened that at Now You we had Scrum, so to say. We used Scrum, and so I was in a role of a product owner there. Um, and after a year, I applied for the position of a product owner in the company I currently work for. And I started as a junior product owner. Then after a year, I was promoted to a product owner. Um, and around, I don't know how long ago it was, a few months ago, we got acquired by another company. And with two businesses merging, as you can imagine, there are a lot of kind of challenges trying to align everything, remove dependencies and so on. And there was a need for someone in the RTE role, which is something that they'd never had before. We'd never had before. And because I have rolled out a lot of projects, I've been in that capability with Scrum Master, and I have strong organizational skills. I was offered that role, and I've been in it for nearly 2 months now. So it's kind of been a transition, and I was discovering as I went, trying to play to my strengths, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, so a lot of different roles, a lot of courage, I would say, to change the roles between, Scrum Master, product owner, even like thinking about, project management. I think all these kind of roles are in a similar area of collaborating with people. And that's, I think, maybe that's what inspired you to pursue the coaching career. What what was your story into like moving to coaching or doing this additional certification in coaching?
Yeah, sure. When it comes to coaching, again, it all started when I was transitioning my career. So, for a year when I was upskilling and so on. Um, it was quite a challenging place where I was because I was changing careers during the pandemic. I live in the UK, so that comes with certain challenges as well because my diplomas, well, I graduated from uni in Poland. So it was quite a tough spot. And then I came across an advert by Young Women's Trust, which is an organization that supports women 18 to 30 years of age who are on low income and basically kind of try to either get back to work and so on. And they provide support with writing CVs, but also with coaching sessions. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try and see what happens. And I was assigned a coach. Um, and I love the process. I don't know, I can't exactly remember. I can't pinpoint the moment when I thought, wow, that is something I want to do. But it definitely helped me a lot. It helped me shift my mindset in a certain way. And I thought, God, I don't know how, but I'm going to start doing that. And I want to help people just like my coach helped me. Yeah, and I found it like really, really powerful, and it really helped me to get out of the situation I was in, kind of mentally as well. Um, so then I started pursuing different certifications. I've now finished 3 schools of coaching, and I'm preparing for an accreditation with the ICF. Hopefully, we'll get it done this year. Yeah, and I've volunteered a lot. I've been cooperating with different organizations, 2050 Climate Group, Short Trust, Womankind, Info Academy in Poland, and so on and so on. So again, it was kind of something that I encountered by chance, but has to a degree changed my life. So yeah, it's quite, now thinking about it, it was quite a powerful year. A lot changed during 2020.
Yeah, I think in these kind of moments of transitioning where when we realize that what helped us can actually help other people,
Mm.
it's a good time to find our mission, I think.
Yeah.
At least for, some time, because these missions, these visions, plans, they are changing. Yeah, we are in a constant, I would say, change. Um, and the change or the result of change is seen very often as a fundamental goal, with the focus of like embracing the change, finding happiness in the process. But there is more. I think there is more to change than this positive aspect, right?
And yeah, I think like, sorry, with everything in life, there are always 2 sides of a coin. And we always talk about the positive things, about the goals, about the vision, or will happen when we get there, which obviously is great, it's fantastic. I'm a coach, I like working with people to achieve goals and so on, but we don't often talk about the cost. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like we don't really talk often enough about, you know, the kind of the darker side, the loneliness, the stuff that we need to leave behind. Because yes, we are opening a new chapter, which is exciting, but we're closing the older chapter. And sometimes the older chapter, the previous chapter, the parts of us are like cannot go to the new chapter, or they just like naturally stay there. Um, and it can be really lonely, because even if we are supported by our friends, by if we have that kind of people around us who are there for us, we walk that path alone, and we sometimes, grow out of certain relationships, grow out of places. I know. Have you ever had that kind of experience in life where you just felt like, oh yeah, that's where I want to go. This is exciting, but at the same time, you just felt like you're losing something, and you don't necessarily know.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'm in this process right now.
Okay.
From For the last like couple of months, I'm like discovering the things that I really enjoy doing that are no longer like interesting to me, and I'm losing a lot of people around me, which is scary, which is also yeah, part of the process. What I'm learning is to first try not to hate them for like living, because it's very childish, yeah, if we think about people in a kind of bad way because they are a part of our past. And that's usually what we are doing when we are like breaking up, for example. Yeah, we think like the partner was the worst and so on, but it's a part of, I think, like victim mentality that I think we'll touch later. And that's what I'm not trying to do. And the other thing is, yeah, it's a lonely time, very lonely time, but it's a part of the process. Yeah, it's the cost you have to pay for who you want to become.
Yeah, yeah, and well done
Yeah.
on on doing it. It's not an easy place to be. I kind of feel, because I feel like I am constantly in that process, but like with different intensity, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely is difficult. Some change happens very spontaneously as well. It's not always, oh, I have the goal, I want to become that and that person. We have certain experiences in life, certain things happen, and we just realize that, I'm no longer the person I was a year ago. We start wondering, like, the people around me, they're not bad people, nor am I a bad person, but like it doesn't work anymore. Like I just feel like I have to move on. The same sometimes as with, with the job. You feel like, you know, it was a great place to work uh, a year ago, but I no longer feel like I'm a part of this. And it can be quite scary because you start thinking like, oh, everything seems to be as it was. It's just me that seems not to fit in anymore. So is there something wrong with
Yeah,
me? It's like that kind of feeling.
totally agree. And I think that there is also like, because usually we think like, yeah, we need to close the chapter and start a new one. But sometimes it's like not very easy to start anew because maybe new opportunities didn't appear yet. You still need to be an adult and earn money, or just live. Yeah, you cannot stop and cut everything off. And like, for example, Julia Roberts in Eat Pray Love, just leave to leave to Italy, India, Bali. Yeah, you just sometimes you just cannot do that. And in this moment, I think the best approach is to understand you have a choice to put the energy into things you can control, and in the same time you're not putting the energy into the things that you cannot control. Yeah, it's the choice, like the acceptance is the choice.
Yes, it's all about taking responsibility in the end, because everything that we do in life is our responsibility. We don't have impact on everything that happens. We can't control everything that happens. We can always choose how we react to it and what we do with what we have. And again, it's very easy to say that, easy said than done. But as you said, there is always that choice. And if we, just like you mentioned with the victim mentality, if we deny that choice, if we just say, there's no choice, I can't do anything, then we are victimizing ourselves. And the moment we decide, like, I do have a choice, I can't do something about it, that's when we can stand in our power and actually, move. Sometimes it's very slow, sometimes it's incredibly hard, but there usually is something we can do about our situation.
Definitely, I totally agree. And I wanted you to also mention the topic of kind of identity crisis, because I think during the change you also have this moment where when your old part is like trying to go the usual route, but the new part is like, no, 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 stop. Yeah, let's stop, think, and do it the right way or the new way, so you will, yeah, not burn the bridges or whatever. Yeah, can you say something more about the identity crisis?
Yeah, I think it links to what we've already said, in the sense that you do change, whether it is kind of like self-inflicted change, so you kind of do it consciously, or you just evolve as a result of your life events or whatever happens. You just start, let's say you look at yourself in the mirror and you just feel like, I'm no longer the person I used to be. And it can be a really scary place. It can also be experienced in situations where, you just, so let's say you've always had certain ideas that you, I don't know, ideas, beliefs that you carried over from your home, from your childhood. And then you start seeing that a lot of that was just someone's opinion that you treat as a fact. Some of that you no longer agree with. Some of it is just downright not true, because we sometimes fed facts that are not really true about parents because they heard it from their parents, they heard it from their parents. And even things like that, you just start thinking like, it's, you just experience a kind of cognitive dissonance of like, oh, that's always been the core of me, but I no longer think that. I no longer feel like I am that kind of person. I think in my experience, I feel that a lot by living in the UK. And when I go to Poland, I say, "Oh, I'm going home." I go to Poland and I feel like it's nice to be back, but it doesn't feel like home anymore because I've lived a few years in the UK and things have changed, things have moved on. And when I go back to the UK, I say I'm going home. And then I'm in the UK and I'm like, you know, oh, am I actually home? And I start thinking like, again, that's a kind of identity problem. Like, well, where is my home? And it no longer feels like it is in one place because I'm between two different places, or maybe it isn't anywhere. And you start feeling, it can be painful at first as well because you have that feeling like, oh, I'll go back home and you'll feel fantastic, but the home has moved on. You have moved on, and it's no longer the same place, and you are no longer the same person. So it all is the kind of experience I think we have to do our grieving over, which it's a bit like saying goodbye, to someone who leaves or dies in a very extreme comparison. But I don't know if there's anything we can do about it other than accepting it.
Yeah, other than accepting that, I think that's one way, and accepting that, or like going into direction that the home is wherever I am. Yeah, I have that feeling last year when I was traveling, definitely a lot more than in previous years. And yeah, it was Dubai, it was Croatia, it was um, then it was Barcelona, Paris, and in Paris, oh, between it was like Warsaw, London, and then at some point, I think it was in Paris, I realized that, oh, I feel here like at home. Weird, because I felt like at home in Dubai, I felt like at home in Warsaw, and in Paris, I realized that, oh, I think I'm having a home here. I mean, in myself, yeah? It's not a place, it's not a country, it's just me. And that can be, I think, empowering, or you can just, get this important feeling of belonging somewhere. You belong to yourself, yeah?
Yeah.
And yeah. But there is definitely like some kind of mental discomfort
Hmm.
connected to that.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think as with every change, just feeling some sort of resistance, there will be discomfort. I think it's like a natural part of the process. Um, I do know what you mean about the belonging and belonging to yourself. I don't know if you've read any of Brene Brown's books, but she covers that quite extensively. And yeah, I really love the concept of, you belong to yourself in the end. And yeah, so as you said, you can find home wherever you go. It's just that, certain things that we used to take for granted that were always there, they just change and we change. And yeah, it can be uncomfortable, but it's just the nature of things. Like the only constant in life is change, and things just move on naturally. It doesn't mean that they're good or bad, doesn't mean that people are good or bad. We just grow apart, we just evolve in different ways. And I don't think there's any way of stopping it. And even if there was, it probably wouldn't be the right thing to do. So it is what it is. I think we just conclude it this way.
Yeah, yeah, constant is yeah, the change is constant, which is still like difficult for me to understand, but I'm looking for the answer, or I'm looking for the approach how to think about it in a more like positive way. Um, but what about fear? What about fear in a change?
Yeah, I think that's what causes the discomfort, right? Because we people in general, I think, feel fear uncertainty, and every change is obviously marked with uncertainty. Um, the same with that kind of identity crisis. Same with our feelings. We just don't exactly know what's going to happen next. Everything we've done so far might seem like okay. It was kind of we knew it, we knew the territory, and I kind of feel like don't know if you agree with it, but I feel like humans have that tendency to accept the known. So, like, no matter how, well, not great it is, rather than, open to the unknown, which might be way better, because, it's a kind of enemy that we know, so to say. If something is maybe difficult or it's not perfect, let's say, but it's still something that we're familiar with, we will be drawn to it and we'll stay in it, rather than just thinking, okay, I could change that situation, but there is a lot of unknown. There's a lot of things that can be much better than they are now, but there's that uncertainty, and I think that's what paralyzes people a lot.
I think I know what you mean, because I have it sometimes. I mean, with resistance, for example, the moment I could find the name for it, like find the name for the kind of power that was trying to stop me from changing, and I called it resistance, or I realized that, oh, this is it. The moment you like identify the problem and call it, it's just easier to know who are you fighting against, or even not like fighting, but sometimes like, you know, yeah, I mean fighting. I would like to say accepting, but it's not always easy to accept something that you don't agree with. Yeah, although I think it's the only is the true power. Yeah, when we're fighting, we're losing a lot of energy. When we're accepting, we just take this energy and can put it in a different place. Yeah, for example, making ourselves stronger to embrace the uncertainty. Yeah. But I think I touched a different topic because you were also mentioning about getting drawn to known things from the past. But yeah, but I think the power is within not about knowing things, but about naming them. And this makes a difference.
Yeah, I think with fear, it's it is said that once you name the fear, it loses its power over you. There's obviously way more to that than just naming it. It's not just like, oh, I'm scared of this and it goes away. But I think that is the first step. And as I said about that resistance, about accepting things, it is very difficult to let some things go. Um, but again, as we discussed before, if you can't really do, or you feel like you've done everything you could, and you can't really do anything with a certain situation, or the person, whatever it might be, they just have to accept it, because or move on.
Totally, like, because these, the moment you take the energy from fighting and realize, okay, the only thing right now I can accept, the new opportunities or new ideas are coming to you, because you finally like are not focused on like this negative energy, and are like laser focused on just this. The moment you just take a step back and say like, okay, here I cannot do anything, I cannot control these things. In that moment, I think a new like channels are opening in your mind, yeah, new ways, new pathways, and you start seeing new opportunities. But that's how it works with me. I don't know if you have similar experiences.
Maybe I'm not sure if I would phrase it exactly the same way, but I think I know what you mean. Basically, once we decide that we no longer want to waste our energy, because that's what it is. It's wasting energy. If we try to change something that can't be changed, you can't call it anything else. If we decide that we want to stop wasting our energy, we can actually take a breath, and we can use that energy and put it into something constructive, into something that will serve us. Obviously, again, this is not certainly easy, but once you kind of are past that point, yes, you will be more creative, you will be potentially having more ideas and so on, because you have that mental space and emotional space to focus on that creative process or whatever else it might be, rather than just, holding on to a burning hot pan or something like that, knowing that it hurts you, but just focusing on all the pain that you're feeling rather than just moving away from it and doing something that will serve you, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think I totally get what you're saying. It's all about managing your energy in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's about managing the energy. Yeah, it's like the time management, energy management. Yeah, whatever we call that, it's about us using our time, resources, energy wisely. Yeah. Um, what about there is like another thing I think in change, in resistance, and in fear, especially like fear of not being able to cope or not being able to handle some situation. What do you think about it?
I think that a fear of not being able to handle stuff is the most basic fear. Because if you have a fear of, for example, I don't know, starting your podcast, let's say, okay, why do you have fear of that? Because you're afraid of being criticized. Okay, um, but why are you afraid of being criticized? Oh, because you think that if you are criticized, you will not handle it. Okay, or I don't know, let's say breaking up with your partner, you think you can't do it. Why? Because it will be painful and you think you'll not handle it. So it always boils down to that thought. If something bad happens, I won't be able to handle it. That's what we're really afraid of the emotions that come. Um, Now, the real anxiety appears the moment when we start seeing our emotional experience as something negative. So, give you an example. If you feel negative emotions and you shut them down, that's when it starts causing anxiety because you don't give yourself the permission to feel them because you think you will not handle them. However, the moment you start accepting those negative emotions and giving yourself a way to feel them, to experience them, and move past them, that's where the anxiety diminishes because it's our, the stress tolerance is like our perceived inability to experience certain emotions. We always feel like, that's why we escape certain experiences because we say, oh, I won't be able to handle this, I won't be able to handle that. And that's why we have the kind of anxiety. Whereas if we actually realize that we can handle a lot of things, we can handle being tired after, I don't know, running 5K. We can handle, I don't know, just being exposed to criticism. We can handle losing certain relationships. It's not easy, no, but we can handle it. Then we start gaining control over our fears. Um, so yeah, I think again it's a very broad topic. I think that fear is the root of a lot of unpleasant, let's say, situations and circumstances in our life. Um, but we are able to handle more than we think usually, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's about the mindset, but also the experiences we're having, during our lifetime. Yeah, we very often focus on, oh, yeah, there is another problem. Oh, there is another problem. If we like take a step back or just look into our like 5 years back, where we've been and how many things we actually accomplished, achieved, and it wasn't like a perfect way, yeah, but it gives you a kind of a perspective to, oh my god, I can handle this situation and this situation and this situation, and I think it's all about kind of the mindset and approach to things. I know, I mean, there are probably circumstances when it's like very difficult to have a positive mindset, but it's again about choosing what you think and how you behave. And there is also like an aspect of change that we didn't touch yet, I think, incredible discomfort of change. How to deal with that? Do you have any ideas?
again, feeding back to what we said, I think the most important thing is to acknowledge that you are in the process and acknowledge what you feel and just like not run away from it, because it's quite easy to try and find distractions. But if you may need to basically just do, as I said, do your grieving and, feel the way you feel for some time in order to properly move on. So I think that's one. I think in any process of change, it's important to remember why we do it, just like with everything else. And why do we actually want to change? And I think it's quite useful as well to do the kind of like a cost analysis, I would say, of change, because we often think about the positives and what, the positive things that will happen, how we'll benefit from change. But I think it's sometimes useful to say, what we might potentially lose or what we'll have to consciously sacrifice. If, let's say, a simple example, if you want to lose weight and become fit, you may have to sacrifice 3-day parties with your friends on the weekend and eating fast food and so on. You may need to change your routine. That might mean that you will lose some of those people, just like we discussed before. That might mean you will lose some of the activities that you were engaged in for a long time, like going to a pub all the time, or that might mean that you have to pick up new skills, like maybe cooking, learn how to prepare healthier meals or something like that. So a very simple example. So I think it's worth just knowing what the cost is and what we may need to, what the price is that we are likely to pay. And once we fully accept that, we take responsibility for the process, and we're like, okay, these are the things that might happen, but I still want to go with it. I still want to try, because that is what matters to me. And I think once we fully accept that, obviously it doesn't mean that, we have to sacrifice everything, every relationship and so on. But I think that once we accept the dark side, the cost that we have to pay, because there always is some cost, otherwise there wouldn't be any resistance, right? I think once we accept that, we really are ready to act on that change. And I think will then be, well, the higher chance that we'll be successful, because we actually know what the deal is. It's not all like, hearts and butterflies and wonderful and, visualizing yourself like finishing, crossing the finishing line and so on in the race. And that's all great and can be fantastic, but we need to know, the hard work that we need to do to get there. And I think that is helpful. And then just embracing the process, just not running away from the fact that it might be uncomfortable. There will be some sort of discomfort. There'll be certain emotions that we maybe don't want to feel because they're not great, they're not pleasant. But it's like with a muscle, building the stress tolerance is like a muscle, and the more you do it, the more or the easier it will get. So just having, as I think, also another thing that is key is just being supportive for yourself, being that kind of support to yourself, and having self-compassion. So when it gets difficult, you don't criticize yourself. You have to remember that it's a hell of a process that you're going through, but it'll be worth it in the end. And just giving yourself that space to just to be, because I think that we sometimes look around, be like, this person does this, that person does that. We can't feel the fear or the negative emotions that people go through. And we sometimes think like, oh, we're the only ones experiencing that. But we're not. Everyone is having some sort of experience. Everyone's, afraid.
Yeah, we're just not alone, and that's sometimes comforting. But I'm wondering also, like, with the recent changes, a lot of companies is like making huge layoffs. My company was impacted. Also, my friends' companies have been impacted, and people there were impacted. And we're very often thinking about how it impacting us as a specialists, yeah, as a people. But there is also like important aspect of leaders who need to make these difficult decisions, yeah. Um, and we tend to forget that these are also people, and they also have feelings, and they also are going through the change. And even like on the organizational perspective, the company paying the cost of losing talents, and the change or the uncertainty or the discomfort, I think we tend to not look at it from a different perspectives. We tend to look, only from our perspective, how bad we feel. Yeah. um, what are your thoughts on that from the, like, also from the perspective of a person who is a coach, but also a professional? Yeah.
Well, I think, first of all, the fact that we see things from our perspective, I think it's natural, right? We all try to like self-preserve. We try to survive. So I think it's normal that we always like think about what's best for us, or what is not so good for us. I think it is important to remember that there are other perspectives though, and that our reality is only one of the realities, right? And the world is not as, the world is well, our perception of the world is just one of the perceptions, and everyone's got their own story. So I think, that doesn't mean that you cannot be in pain. In the end, when you are fired, that affects your life. It can be a very dramatic change, affecting some people more than others potentially, depending on your situation, and it can be difficult for you personally. And I don't think we should deny ourselves, the fact that it is difficult for us. But at the same time, there's probably, business is business. We can't just blame managers for doing that because they were just told to do that. And they're not, we shouldn't just probably shouldn't take it personally, because it's not that, well, I would assume in most cases, it's not that the manager was just sitting and like, okay, I'm just going to fire that person because of a given reason. I'm actually very happy about this. As I said, they're all people and they're just doing the job. Just seeing that kind of perspective that, however we want it, because I think we always feel to a degree that the world revolves around us, because we feel like we are in our own, music video, like everyone else is actors, but everyone is the main character in their own music video, and everyone's got this internal world and everyone's got their own feelings, and it's sometimes easy to forget that just because we are very biased. But that doesn't mean there aren't billions of other perspectives.
Yeah, definitely. And good that you said about being, an actor, a director, script writer. Yeah, I don't know if we call it like that, but a writer of your own story, of your own life. And I think we just, move to the topic of kind of types of change. Can you elaborate more on that, on the types of change?
I'm not entirely sure if there are any specific like criteria of what types of change there are, but I would say the two main that I would identify is the kind of self-induced change, which I mentioned before, and the kind of more spontaneous change. So self-induced is you consciously making a decision that you want to change something. You may have a goal, you may come up with a plan, and you're just trying to change a given aspect of your life. Whereas there's also that part of the more spontaneous change that happens to you, as you move through life, as you are, facing different challenges, as you change your circumstance, your surroundings, as different experiences, as you experience different things, as different experiences happen to you, so to say. Well, as you said before, you look 5 years back and like, wow, I was a completely different person, but it doesn't mean that I planned to be exactly where I am now. Not every aspect was planned, but something just changed naturally. Our horizons broaden. We meet new people. We learn different ideas. We get rid of certain thoughts or beliefs that we had, and just all happens more spontaneously. So I think that's the kind of two types of change that I would identify.
Yeah, and very often, the spontaneous one, as we call it, like for unforeseen scenarios, are happening more often than the planned like self-motivated, change. And I think you mentioned about a lot of techniques that we can actually use during, a change, during the challenges. Maybe it's a good opportunity to like list them now for our listeners to know, what we just discussed, and like get the tooling, to embrace the change.
Summarize. Yeah. So again, I think it depends a bit on the nature of change, but I would say acknowledge your emotions and the situation you're in. Maybe look at the cost analysis, what the change is about. Remember why you want to change. Have self compassion to yourself, support yourself in the process. Grieve what you have to grieve. There are certain things you have to say goodbye to. Um, I don't think there's a way around it. You just have to grieve those things. I would say that having some sort of support group is really helpful. People who go through the same situation or who are in the change process, maybe under slightly different circumstances, I think that can be really helpful as well. So, if it is, for example, changing a job, and you have someone who's also changing a job and you can bounce off ideas of one another, or just some kind of support groups or whatever you may need. But yeah, I think those are just kind of generic guidelines. I think change is a very individual thing. There are obviously millions of possible scenarios. Everyone's story is different and everyone's got slightly different circumstances. I think there are other things that can be done, but they're more of a, what to say, you need a bit more tailored approach.
Definitely, all that you talked us through before is relevant. I would just add like two things. You mentioned 5 whys. I don't know if intentionally or not intentionally, but at some point when you were speaking about, thinking about our why and the mission that is like behind the change, you also like started to ask yourself questions like why. And this is like called, I think, 5 whys, or Socrates dialogue, something like that. And I mentioned, Leah, like looking back 5 years back, 10 years back, and see, the kind of process, focus on our achievements and see how the process looked like. And then we definitely can see the challenges that we faced. And it gives us a kind of, I think, power to move on and make sure that we can handle everything what's waiting for us. Yeah. And making a conscious choice. Yeah. You mentioned embracing the process. Yeah. Grieve the loss, accept it's like temporary, and then make a conscious choice that I want to do this or that, or I just don't want to give my energy to the things that I cannot control. And with this little summary of the previous part, I think we're moving to the part of women's support and specific challenges. So, Ola, in your career, have you like observed any complexities or challenges in the way women support each other in technology or leadership roles?
I've spotted challenges in the way women support each other and the ways they don't support each other. I think it is a very complex topic, and especially when we talk about tech, so like a very male dominated environment. Um, there are a lot of challenges for women overall. And personally, because before tech, I'm an engineer, so by profession, let's say, which is also an incredibly male dominated environment. I've been surrounded by men, so to say. I had a lot of like male friends in the past, and and I've been in those environments. So um, I can say that I've had some of the possibly the best experiences with women and some of the least nice experiences, so to say. Um, and I think there's a lot that we can do, but I would love to hear your perspective on that as well. What was your take on women supporting women in a workplace?
Well, in the past, I had one female leader, female manager, and I felt more like I'm competing with her rather than I'm supported by her. Right now, I have another female leader as my manager, and she's different. She's supportive. She's very helpful. She's she's trying to take care of me and being very understanding for the past few months. So again, like mixed experiences. It's a difficult question because I think I don't want to say that the problem with women not supporting each other doesn't exist. I think it exists. There are some core, there's some roots of that, and I'm trying like to maybe find them right now. Like, uh, think why we are sometimes like competing with each other instead of supporting each other. But I think right now I don't have a good answer yet. I think it depends a lot on on how you feel with yourself, on your not confidence, not self confidence, but the trust you have to yourself, to your skills, to yourself as a person. And the more support you have towards yourself, I think the more support you are able to give to other people. But you need to be you need to be like um, inside, like very strong, and trust to yourself. That's my thought for now, but it can change within the next few months.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Definitely, I think, well, again, as with a lot of things, if you're running, if your cup runs dry, if you don't have enough for yourself, then it's very difficult to give to other people. So I think it does make sense. And I think confidence is one bit. I think there's also that societal problem, especially in male dominated environments, there's a lot of conscious or subconscious thing, a lot of times, sort of subconscious or unconscious bias against women. Again, I don't want to generalize because, like I personally, my first manager in tech, oh my God, she was an incredible person. When I started, I didn't know anything. Like honestly, I was just starting from scratch, and she was there. She provided me with technical support. She would teach me. She would provide me with emotional support. She would create opportunities for me. When I had a moment when I doubted myself, she would just be there, and she was just like, you can't do it, and she would just give me another challenge. She was an absolutely incredible person. And I really felt like she cared about me as a person, not only as an employee. And I felt like she really wanted me to succeed. Like I could really feel that, and I don't feel like I've experienced that ever again, like from any other manager, not to this degree. Like I really felt her support. And I didn't even, well, I was really grateful, but I didn't even realize how incredible she was. And now I'm well aware that where I am now is is thanks to her in a major part. Obviously, I've done, I worked really hard for it, but um, I wouldn't be where I am now if it hadn't been for her incredible support at the beginning. And, that she tried to instill confidence in me when I was, I joined IT as a junior PO, as a woman, as a foreigner. There were so many challenges, but she gave me some of the most incredible support. And I think about her a lot during her hard times, because she was just so incredible. Or she still is, I believe. But there are some like really positive experiences, and that there's the kind of support that, again, I don't want to generalize, but there's a kind of emotional support that I feel women are really skilled at. They can really give you, and because they also understand the struggles of the male dominated environment. how difficult it is to break through the glass ceiling. If they do help you, they do it really well.
Yeah, I agree. But they need to first like see the problem, yeah? Because sometimes we tend not to see, we tend to, like children, yeah? If we don't say, if we don't see the problem, then it doesn't exist, yeah?
I'm not here.
And it's, yeah, I'm not here, exactly. And it's important to kind of balance the consciousness, yeah, of the problem exists. There is like really bias, like I think you can talk about the research, yeah, on diversity, and you can quote that, and I think that will be a good moment. But definitely there is some sort of bias in a tech male dominated industry that we need to acknowledge, and probably I'll be hated by saying that. All my scores will like low down, yeah. um and on the other hand, we cannot let this bias limit us, yeah. We cannot get into the victim mentality and say, oh, if there is a bias, I can't do anything, I'm a woman, I depend on, on the coincidence, on the society, and I cannot do anything about it. No, I think we have a power, we have possibilities to change things. We just need to also be aware of that this bias exists, and think how we can overcome it, think how we can, yeah, balance the acceptance and fighting, I would say, yeah, fighting for ourselves. Come back to the research and on diversity that we were talking about before our recording, and also about the queen bee syndrome, which is also a kind of factor that might hinder women from supporting each other. So maybe we start from the queen bee syndrome. What's that? I don't understand.
So that is a concept. I think it was coined by Carol Travis, if I remember correctly, in the 70s. And she is an American social psychologist, I think. And that basically it is a derogatory term, so negative term, that describes women's, women in, let's say, high positions, some leadership positions in organizations in male dominated environments. And it basically means that, because it is a male dominated environment, there are a lot of barriers to women achieving a certain position, like, breaking through that glass ceiling that we mentioned before. They tend to try to fit in, and they try to exhibit behaviors that are characteristic of men normally, again generalizing. So, for example, being more decisive, more assertive, and so on, and basically get into that position. And it's called queen bee because there is, again, it's a generalization, doesn't mean that it always happens, but those women might have a tendency to try and block other females from getting into senior positions because it was, because it's a kind of silent, maybe not really acknowledged competition, that there are very few spots on the top of the mountains for women. There'll be like, 10 men and maybe one woman, let's say. And you just think, okay, I need to protect my spot. And if I figure out how to get there, then she has to figure out on her own. So there are like certain, obviously very toxic behaviors. Sometimes they are more conscious, sometimes they're a bit subconscious. And again, it's a term that, yeah, can be perceived many different ways, and it's not always the case. But I think some bits of that phenomenon can be seen sometimes, if not the fully blown phenomenon itself. So yeah, basically kind of like trying to be very territorial, trying to stop other females from progressing, trying to expose more of the male energy, because that is what historically leadership has been about, right? Being assertive, being strong. When a guy, and again, speaking of unconscious bias, when a guy is assertive is seen as a leader, right? When a woman is assertive, what she's seen as? She's seen as bossy. I personally was told a few years ago, my colleague, a male, he would give me advice saying, you need to like push developers a bit hard, as in like you've got authority, like be more decisive. That's what my colleague would tell me to support me. Whereas my manager said, when I told him that I wanted to work on my assertiveness, he told me that was bossy enough, right? So my colleague would see me as not quite assertive enough, whereas some people would see me as being too bossy, whereas my male colleague would probably never get comments like that. He was just right. He was a leader. He had authority. So again, I'm not saying that. I don't want it to sound like an anti-men propaganda, nothing like that, because I love working with men. My team is all men; they're incredible. But I just think there's a lot of the kind of skewed perception, a lot of bias that men and women alike don't really realize exists. That we have double standards of what a male should be like, what a female should be like, what a leader looks like. That a leader should not show vulnerability because it's too feminine. A leader should be strong. I think that is changing, and I'm very glad it is. But as with any change like that, it is taking time, and in environments where women are so scared, so to say, especially in leadership positions, um, it will just take longer, I believe, to change the narrative.
Yeah, but I think also it depends on how we see the leadership positions. Yeah, because I had a conversation recently with also with executive coach. She's working with high performance people and like top leadership, um, with top leadership. And she actually mentioned that leadership is coming from the words stepping up and dying. And sometimes we don't realize it. We think only about having the influence, but there is like another part of these leadership positions, which is servant leadership, yeah, being there for people. And I really believe that women are trained in supporting each other, um, in supporting everyone, because we very often have to have like different roles, be mothers, daughters, wives, friends, and yeah, we just our natural state, I would say, is to support people amongst us, and I think it's our superpower, and that's how we can actually, if we look at this from that perspective, that can also help us to understand that maybe bringing more women into like leadership positions, or giving a hand and help someone else to get where you are, can make the environment you're in more I would call it breathable. Like, you finally can take a breath and feel like, okay, I don't have to, feel all this stress and pressure to keep my position. Maybe if you have an allies, like men are very often, talking to each other, like also like bringing um, their, people who they like to work with, I would say. But basically, men are looking for support too, yeah, from their colleagues, from their um, from the men that they, for example, worked with, and they know they can lean on. So why we as women are not doing the same? Yeah, we can lean on each other. I don't know, just my thought, and looking at this problem from a different perspective, and maybe trying to convince more women into giving more trust into their skills, but also like into the skills that other women have, and generally that people have. And what about this research you mentioned about different, hiring managers?
There are two groups of participants, and they were going to evaluate the competency of a hiring manager depending on the hiring manager's choices. And one of the hiring managers hired or selected candidate who was male because of the highest scores that they had. The other one hired a woman because of the highest scores she had, and also because it would increase the level of diversity, because it was a vice presidential position or some kind of like high rank. And then those groups were ranking the competency of the hiring manager, and where the hiring manager was a man, his competency ratings were not affected by whether he said he selected someone like the female candidate because of the fact that she had higher scores and would bring in diversity. However, a female manager, hiring manager, I feel that female hiring managers' competency scores were lowered significantly when she hired a woman with higher scores and because of diversity, because it was seen as some sort of bias and favoritism. So, to summarize, when a man chooses to go for diversity, and let's say that the skills, the qualifications completely the same, and he chose to go for diversity, it was fine. When a woman chose that kind of diversity, it was seen as being biased and not being competent. Again, that shows a perception that there is, that women supporting women are maybe not necessarily seen or portrayed in the best light. You know, even when we look at the concept of feminism, which I think is like a hot potato, I hear a lot of women saying, I just want to be paid the same as a man, but I'm not a feminist. I just want the same opportunities, but I'm not a feminist. Like, you know, we are afraid of that word. Feminism is nothing anti-men. And I feel that that is part of the problem, that some people see it as an aggressive attack on men. Absolutely not. Men are fantastic. They bring a lot of stuff to the table. This is not, you know, to take over the world and or anything like that. It's just the fact that there are those inequalities, and it is about bridging them. But so many people associate the term, at least I know in Poland they do, the term feminism as it's something, you know, poisonous, as something terrible, because women fighting for women is just wrong. Well, is it really wrong? You know, it's not. And the fact that women say that they're even afraid to use the term feminist because they'll be perceived as someone who wants something for themselves. I think it's just ridiculous. It's you know, and the fact that we don't embrace it. How do we want the world to embrace it if we agree to the fact that wanting equality is something wrong? And I think the same with the kind of, you know, bias in workplace. If we agree to the fact that us supporting other women is something wrong, you just know where it's heading. There's no way anything can change if we perceive that kind of support this way. If we see it like in such a, you know, the kind of dualism that it's either supporting women and getting rid of men or whatever, doing harm to men, or nothing. Like, it is not that. We can still support one another. We can support women. That doesn't mean we have to, you know, harm or hate or whatever men. It's not what it is. But that is subconsciously what people think. And that's reflected in their actions and their perceptions. And I think it's very, very sad and difficult to change.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's not black and white. Yeah, it's not always that if we are stronger, if we just know what we want, we are against men or against other women. We just are taking care and loving ourselves. Yeah, it's gentle, but it's powerful. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like this. The strong energy, I don't think it needs to be very dominating, very like, very dark, very like a
Aggressive,
kind of
yeah.
aggressive. Yeah, but we tend to see each other, I think, as a woman, as if we want something and we clearly express it, we are aggressive. No, we are not. We're just speaking openly about our needs and our wants, and that's completely fine. Yeah, because um, if we don't say what we want, if we don't take this challenge and go into, for example, leadership positions, we are not giving the other women the opportunities. Yeah, they don't have role models. They don't even know it's possible to be in that position as a leader, and to be a woman, to have a family, to be a wife, to be a daughter, and in the same time to be a leader, to lead people, to serve them, and to support them. So yeah, what's your thought on the leadership and the role models?
I think it is crucial. You can't be what you can't see. That's at least what they say. I think it definitely helps to have female role models, to see someone who's already achieved what you want to achieve, but not only to have them, but to have their support. If we have like queen bees everywhere, to me, it makes it a bit. The thought just repulses me, because when I think, okay, do I want to be, if I have to be that kind of person to sit at the table, then I don't want that. You know, I would like obviously you can think, okay, I'll go and change the narrative, but if it is a standard that we have to be a queen bee in order to sit at the table, then it's really discouraging, I think, to a lot of women as well. But we definitely need uh, females in power. I think there are a lot of benefits from that, diversity, the kind of different predispositions that we have, um, different perspective. There are loads of benefits. As with every diversity, it's not only about gender, it's about race, it's about, country. Like everywhere you look at it, diversity is good and it is beautiful and it helps us grow all together. So yeah, we definitely need more role models. And what you said about that kind of energy that doesn't, that it can be gentle, doesn't have to be aggressive, totally. I think we are kind of to blame a bit as well as women, because we sometimes, well, at least I see from my example, I might think like, oh, she's so full of herself or something like that. That's what I used to think. But then when you reflect, would you think something like that about a man? Because normally not. You'll be just like, oh, he's so confident. Oh, he's like you know, a high flyer. He's like a high achiever. Um, and it's just completely normal. With a man, with a woman, it's a completely different narrative. And we also have to be conscious of the bias that we as women have of thinking about one another like, oh my God, who does she think she is? Well, she is who she is. Is she full of herself? Well, fantastic, because that's what she deserves to be, because that's how everyone else is. But we just, look at women and be like, that's not right. But look at all the men around them. They wouldn't even question that another man is like that. We wouldn't question that another man is like that. It's just normal. So I think we really need to be observant and spot those blind spots that we have, where we think that we support women, but we actually have that mindset that is quite the opposite. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I think I definitely have.
Um, it's a kind of difficult question, but definitely, I think I have that experience when I'm looking at other female colleagues. That sometimes I tend to like even like stop myself from, for example, saying something. Because I think like, oh, if I will do that right now, they will see me as bossy, or I'm like basically judging myself through these lenses. But I also, when you judge yourself, you also like judge others. And sometimes it's difficult for me to understand my colleagues and leaders who are too soft, too gentle. And that's where I'm realizing right now that I also have a bias and some beliefs that I need to work on, because definitely there is like still a lot of work to be done in my case. But I think the first step to actually change something is like realizing that, oh, I think I have it. Yeah, I think I have that dark side also. Like, I think I don't understand things. I think I can be a kind of radioactive in my thinking also. So yeah, thank you, Ola, for making me realize that now, yeah, that I also have some biases and I need to work on that. But yeah, I think it's a good moment also to come back to the manager example that you spoke about in the beginning, that you had a female manager who supported you, but also a kind of manager that was not very supportive, that was like you felt like competing with you or, challenging you too much?
Well, the other manager was a man, and I'd rather not talk about him because it's not worth my energy, to be fair. But since we're talking about, if that's okay with you, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could talk a bit more briefly before we wrap up about the kind of support that we can give. So, as you said, the unconscious that you have some unconscious bias to work with. I just want to add to that, though. I think we all do, and by no means should you feel bad about it. It's just what we're surrounded with. We keep, we're soaked by certain notions that sometimes are simply blind to it, and I'm blind to a lot of things myself. So, as you said, recognizing that there is the kind of bias is the first step, and then changing behavior. I think how we can support one another as women is not only the kind of traditional support that, we actually work with someone to help them achieve something. I think one of the most powerful ways is actually leading by example. And a dear friend of mine was in a situation around a year ago or something where she works in a male dominated environment. She's a developer, a fantastic employee, always delivering to deadlines, even working when she was ill, which again, not something to be proud of, but she's got incredible work ethic and never did anything to betray anyone's trust. And then there was a situation where she was basically treated with the double standards. She was basically told indirectly that she's not trusted. And I won't go into details, but it was a kind of situation where it was not great, basically, how she was treated. And what she did, the exact same day that situation happened, she handed in her notice. And to me personally, it was a very empowering act. And, did she do it to help me? No, she didn't. She did it for herself, obviously. But as Maya Angelou said once, each time a woman stands for herself without knowing it, possibly without claiming it, she stands up for all women. And it felt like that quote manifested itself in that very moment. And together with some other circumstances or experiences, situations in my life, that was a kind of a turning point where I felt really empowered, and I decided that I'm no longer going to be agreeing to certain behaviors and attitudes that I've been experiencing as well. Um, because, we can empower other women by standing up for ourselves, by speaking up, by changing the narrative. And, I'm basically now trying to stand up for myself more, not tolerate certain things. And I feel like I owe it to myself, but I also feel like I do it for other women that I work with. And the kind of leading by example is extremely powerful. As I said, the example of my friend, I don't know if she is aware of that. Maybe she is. Maybe I'll message her after this. But it really was like one of the turning points. And, the fact that she did something for herself, something like that, it changed something in me. And we need those kind of examples in our life. We need to see women speaking out for one another, speaking out for themselves. And yeah, and I think it's just beautiful, and it really is empowering to me.
I definitely agree. And there is like another quote of Maya Angelou that fits here, I think. It's I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you
Make
made them
them feel
feel. And
yes.
I think this friend made you feel empowered, and that's why you cannot forget about that event.
Yeah, it was just one of those moments where obviously I felt terrible knowing how she was treated, because she by no means deserved it. But her reaction, it was like, go girl. Like I was incredibly proud, and she really is a superhero, to this day, even more so.
A great example, yeah, of standing for yourself, and it's empowering also to think like that this one act of courage influence you, and maybe some other people hearing about that right now when they will be listening to that podcast can also feel empowered to stand for themselves. Either they are women or men, they are just they will be inspired to fight for themselves and make their truth or authenticity visible to others, yeah, and inspire them. Okay, I think we need to close our
No.
conversation. It's really like amazing for me to speak with you, and I love like how we can like exchange thoughts and different approaches and learn from each other. And what's the one key takeaway that you would like our listeners to remember about change, growth, women support? Yeah, any crucial thought at the end?
Yes, growth and change can be tough, but so are we. We can do hard things, and it's all worth it in the end. And also, go girls. That's my main thought. Go girls! You can do it. You can do it for yourself. You can do it for other women as well.
Yeah, I agree with both. Like growth can be tough. It is tough. We need to accept that, and yeah, we as women need to stand for ourselves and support each other. Yeah. And what's the thing that you're most looking forward to achieving in 2024?
I would say peace. The kind of peace, that comes from like your inner alignment and doing things well that align with your values, with your beliefs. So that's where I'm heading. Hopefully, no longer taking crap, and just getting closer to myself. And I'm also looking forward to a program that I'm running with my partner in crime, Olga, starting next week. It's called Get It Done, and it's for folks in tech who want to increase their personal effectiveness. So exciting times.
Oh yeah, that's exciting to hear about your program and that both like you and Olga are collaborating together, yeah, supporting each other as women, which is inspiring again. And I'm looking forward to the outcomes of that program, yeah, how it will change some people's lives. But for our listeners interested in connecting with you, where they can find you, Ola, they can find you online, or yeah, what kind of support you can provide to them?
You can find me in Bristol. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Instagram. In terms of support, I am open to coaching, mentoring individuals, especially women in tech, who want to break through the glass ceiling and make some changes in their lives. So if you'd like some support, let me know and we can have a chat.
Okay, Ola, thank you for our conversation. It was great to have you here. And yeah, I think we need to do it again. Yeah, definitely. It's not our last conversation. So thank you.
Totally. Thank you so much, Bart. It was lovely speaking to you, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of Doing It My Way by Beata Matras. If you enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to subscribe. Remember, this podcast is a dynamic journey and your feedback is very welcomed. Connect with me on social media. I would like to hear your thoughts, questions, and topic suggestions. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes. And until next time, keep doing it your way.